thought today with eRequest and invoice approvals, and also bringing in David from Kofax, is we just talk about the way that hopefully these products can help you work remotely. We're no longer able to just pop down the corridor with an invoice and ask someone to sign it, or if we want to purchase something, or if someone's at home needs to purchase something, you can't just pop down to someone's desk and ask for a purchase order. So what eRequest Purchase to Pay enables us to do is set up a web portal for people to log into. And from there they can raise their requisitions, get that all the way through to purchase order, through to delivery, and also when the invoices come in, those can be approved also via the portal. So, like I said, it's a centralized portal. It's a defined and documented process. And why I mentioned that is that what we're able to do in setting up eRequest and invoice approval is define processes that work within your organization. And that process then happens every time. So invoices of a certain type go to a certain person for approval. They can't be posted or they can't be paid before they're approved. So it drives the adhesion to the process that's required to keep the office ticking over nicely. Obviously, this brings efficiencies because it's easier to approve and track the purchases. What we're also doing is through the requisition side of it, you can only purchase through controlled approved suppliers. So those suppliers have to be inside your Dynamics GP, and hopefully this stops people going off and buying from random suppliers where you might not be getting the right prices, etc. So what we're going to do today is, and I know a number of you are using either invoice approvals or using eRequest. You've probably seen a similar sort of demonstration online, or not personally and done it for you. What I'll also be doing today is showing some of the new features that we've put in the product recently to help with remote using of the system. And finally, I'll end up and we'll go through the Amazon link up that we've been working hard on. So the process starts with putting a request on over on the left-hand side. Anybody that you've given access to the portal can go in, put a request onto the system. That needs to get pushed through a series of approvals, and there we can also do commitment checking. So the commitment checking will check against budgets if you've got them inside Dynamics GP to make sure that the purchase is within budget. We can set that to just be a warning, just an advisory, or we could set it to say, absolutely not, you can't buy it if it's outside budget. There's lots of settings and workflows related to that. Once that request is approved, it then goes into Dynamics GP as a purchase order. So again, from a remote working perspective, I see that as important because your finance people can see that as a purchase order within your ERP, within your Dynamics GP system. So that is already part of your ERP. When the goods are received, I'm aware that sometimes people might be ordering stuff that now needs to be delivered to a different address than the office. So using the portal, the people receiving the goods can go into the portal and say, yes, I've received the goods. So when the invoice comes in, we can match that against the receipt. If the invoice comes in and we haven't been notified the goods have been received, then the system will tell us, and we need to find out why the goods haven't been received or why the person hasn't been in the portal to advise us. We've also then got the ability for the invoice approvals, which means that from the invoice, we can either send it back to the original requester, or if we're happy that the goods have been received, we can just push it straight through, post it and pay it. I've put the red box around the purchase invoices because that can also be a separate part of the process, whereby you can put in things like utility invoices that aren't related to a PO at all and get those pushed through the invoice approval process before they go through to posting or paying. If we look at that invoice approval process specifically, over on the left here we've got the invoice entered or imported into Dynamics GP. So there's a number of things around that box. When the invoice is entered manually, we can either take a scanned image of the invoice, or I'll show you a little bit of the drag and drop functionality where we're able to drag that invoice and drop it into Dynamics GP so that the image of the invoice is attached to the transaction inside GP. When I'm talking about importing invoices in, that might be invoices that have come from an external system, or invoices that have come through the Kofax route and pushed through into Dynamics using OCR from Kofax, which David will show us immediately after I'm finished here. Whether they're entered manually or imported, they go through a rules engine, and depending on the rules we set up, they can be routed either to individual users or to groups of users and hierarchies to get them approved. So an invoice might go to a group of users to check, and then depending on the value of the invoice, it might then go up to another group of users for final approval. And finally, maybe it needs 2 directors to sign it off if it's of a certain value. So all that's built in the setup of the invoice approvals. Right, so I've spoken enough. Let's actually go and show you the system in action. So there's 2 things I want to point out in the way that I'm showing the system today. One is that although I'm on my own PC, I'm actually linking out to a hosted platform at Nolan's to run the web portal itself. So that's not sitting on my own PC, it's actually sitting in the cloud on my hosted platform. I've also remote desktopped into my Dynamics GP. So again, this is not sitting on my PC at home, this is sitting on a remote desktop server, again, hosted for me. So trying to be as true as possible to working remotely here. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm just going to run through very quickly Angela setting up an event, asking for some promotional gifts, and we'll push that all the way through to the system. So Angela's on the portal and she logs in using her email address and a password. We can also link this up to various Active Directory authentication so that it knows about her. So here we go. And this is the home page that Angela gets. So at the top she sees any requests that she's got to action. This might be requests coming in for her to approve, or it might be requests that she needs to deal with because they've been rejected. Requests waiting for others, or ones where obviously she's waiting for others. And we can also see a list here of recently completed requests that Angela's put through. This is like a history area, but it also enables us to duplicate requests that we've put on before. We don't have to key them all in. I'm going to get to new request, and Angela's got 2 options. She can either put on an Amazon Office purchase, or she can put in marketing and event request. We're just going to quickly do a marketing event request. So Angela in sales and marketing, we've got request number 24 come up here, and the delivery address is going to be, in this case, to our offices in Fleet. Although, given the right access, we can change this address here if we need to send these to somewhere else. You'll see my email pop up because I've left my email on because I want to show you some of the emails that come out of the system. So, Angela, we've got a request up, number 24, like I say. We're just going to add a line. So what does Angela need to buy? What I've done is I've set up inside Dynamics, inside GP, a list of items that relate to events and marketing. So as I said, we're going to be promotional gifts, and we'll put a description. What's nice about putting these items in is what we can do is we can drive the account number based on the item. So you'll see here it's driven 100. That's my departmental segment, which I've driven actually from Angela. Angela's in Department 100, for sales and marketing. And 6220 is the nominal code for promotional gifts, which has been driven from what item number we've selected. So I'm going to say we want promotional coffee mugs. And who do we buy those from? So I mentioned that we restrict the suppliers. And what the system's doing here is it's showing us that we normally buy promotional gifts from Premier Print. So it defaults that on the front page, and I can choose that. If my supplier is not on the list, then I can click the link suppliers only, and I get a list of all my suppliers inside my dynamic system. So I'm just going to select Premier Print here. We're going to have 30 mugs, and they're going to cost us £2.60 each. Added up the total, £78. It's worked out from GP. That's the VAT and the total amount. Let's scroll down a bit. It's required. I need these by Friday the 29th, please. And in Nolan blue and orange. So this demo would be so much better if I could spell. Here we go. Okay. What we can also see down at the bottom here is that we've got the budget for promotional gifts. Angela's got 12,000 a year to spend on promotional gifts. But year to date, because we're in May, year to date, it's 1,000 a month, so she's on 5,000. So far, we've spent £3,289, and so based on that, 78, we've got 71% of the budget remaining. So that's fine. You can go ahead and purchase that. I'll save that. What we can also do on the request is we can add attachments. So if I go and choose coffee, a picture of the coffee mug that I want to purchase, put it in there. So when the person that's approving it needs to approve it, they can see the mug or they can see the quote, etc. Angela needs to submit this, and it automatically comes up with a hierarchy that we've set up. So that's going to Mark Hennessy. Mark Hennessy will get an email telling him that there's a request to approve, and Mark logs in, and he sees the request and his request to action. You can click on that, you can take a look, you can go in, you can have a look at the details, the budget, anything that informs his decision. You can also see there's an attachment. So you can go and have a look at what mug Andrew's actually looking for. He's looking for an I Love Fargo mug for 30 of those. So if Mark's happy with that, Mark has it's £93, and I think Mark's got about a £3,000 limit, so Mark can approve this request. Request is approved, and we get purchase order number 2082, which is ready to be sent to the supplier via email. One of the new features I'll show you when I talk about Amazon is that we can automatically set up the system to send that to Amazon. or sorry, to the supplier when it's raised. So that's out there with the supplier. It's a purchase order on GP. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to log in as Angela again. And if we go to the receive part of the request, we can see that request, that PO, is sitting there waiting for Angela to tell us that she's received those coffee mugs. So when she has, she can type in how many she's received. Actually, it's 30 that we ordered. And the goods receipt notes number 305. She hits the receipt button. What we can see, it creates receipt 1180 inside Dynamics. So time to go and have a look at Dynamics. I'm just going to go across onto my remote Dynamics server. And we'll go into my inquiry. And we'll have a look for what I can see here is here's my purchase order. It was for promotional gifts. Go into a bit more detail. You can see it was the promotional coffee mugs due on the 29th. It's requested by Angela in Nolan blue and orange. All the detail that has come through from the request. We can also see here's the shipment record showing us that we've received the coffee mugs, 30 coffee mugs. And this is going to post to the promotional gifts nominal and accrue the purchase for us, waiting for the invoice to arrive. We don't post things inside Dynamics, so purchase ledger person needs to go into the eRequest batch and post it if they're happy with those transactions. I'm just going to post that through. Okay, so really quickly, I've shown you putting on a request for Angela, and Angela also doing the receipt, telling us that she's received those goods. Let's move on to the invoice part of it. So the invoice comes in from Premier Printer Promotions, and we're able to go into Dynamics and to match the invoice. I put in here invoice 2005. I'm going to put into a batch, CS25. The supplier was Premier Printer Promotions. And up here, using the auto invoice, I can see a list of received purchase orders. So here we are, here's our 30. Click on invoice. So as a purchase ledger person, I've actually had to type in very little. So now it's all been done by Angela or Mark, and here's my invoice matched to receipt on 180. Right, so there's a couple of things I can do now. If I've got the invoice, I can go into the attached portion here. And you'll see there's the drag and drop area. So either from my email or from a saved image on the system, I can drag the invoice into there and it's attached now to the transaction inside GP. Also, inside the approval section, I can see here, because we've matched the invoice to the receipt and everything matches, the system's telling me approval is not required. If I go and change the amount, so I'll say actually there's the invoice is telling me it's £80, the system comes up and says there's a difference. Am I going to accept that? Yes, I am. If I now go back inside invoice approval, we can see that now we require approval because it's a variance, and we require approval by Nolan. Actually, I'm just going to change that. I've been set up as the default, but we could have myself or Angela to approve it. So I'm just going to set that up to Angela. Okay. So let's go back to my machine and to my hosted GP. I'm logged in as Angela. Angela would actually get an email to go into invoice approvals, and here we can see the receipt showing us that the invoice has come in, promotions. It was for £80, and we can see that there's a £2 variance on it. A number of things we've added into here. We can see the control accounts, so we can see the reversal of the accrual, the payments amount, the taxes. Inside there, I can also go in and view the invoice that was attached. That was the invoice that was attached. I can go view that. I can create notes. I can have a look at other approval history if it's going through a hierarchy. Just for time, what I'm going to do here is so that Angela says that's okay. We approve it, and she can say this was for the logo. Okay. And it tells us the invoice approval has been completed. This is Angela, who's remote, away from the office. She's not been able to see the invoice, approve it. What's happened back in GP, if I go back to that invoice, is it's moved the invoice now to an approved batch. It's told us it was approved by Angela because this was for the logo printing, and the approval is now complete. And we can see here that it's been approved as well. So what we're able to do now is go into our approved batch and post it. And there's the posting of our invoice for the promotional compliments. Let's take us all the way around that loop. Want to speak specifically about invoice approvals. It's not just invoice approvals on matching invoices and purchasing. Well, I'm aware that a lot of customers use purchase ledger postings, which is this window, which you'll be familiar with, to post invoices in if you're not using purchase orders, or if you are using purchase orders, there's some invoices, utility bills, etc., that don't have POs. So inside here, I can put an invoice from BT, for example. BT Business Direct invoice. So that is for £1,500. That's VAT. Inside additional eRequest approval, you can see the invoice is not required. But if I go in to the distributions and I say I need to post that 30 to my sales supply of hardware account, it is now required by an admin person to approve it. So it would go around the whole with the same process as I've just shown you on the invoice. And obviously, we've also put the drag and drop feature in here for us to be able to drop invoices in. So it was just a small part of invoice approvals. They can be used as a standalone module and I know a number of you on the call today are using it as such. Right, so let's go and have a look specifically at some of the new features, including the Amazon feature. So if I go back to my eRequest, we've been working quite hard with Amazon to create what is known within purchasing circles as a punch-out. So punch-out is where we're able to use someone else's website to be able to enter what you want, but yet it's all linked up seamlessly with eRequest so that we can still use eRequest for the creation of purchase order in Dynamics and also the approval. So I'm going to log out here and I'm going to log in as my eRequest user. Okay, you'll see the same sort of setup inside here, and I can go put a new request on. I've got the option here, Amazon Office Purchases. So we're looking remarkably the same as Angela's request. I've put myself, in this case, in the consulting department. Consulting is department 500 in Nolan's terms. And over here, I've got a link. So a link to Amazon. And if I click on Amazon here, see it opens up the Amazon business website. So I'm logged in as a Punchout group within the Amazon business website as Nolan Procurement. So Nolan Procurement's linked to my personal email address. And what we can do inside the Amazon business is we can set up specific users with restrictions as to what they can buy, etc. So this is all part of the Amazon offering. So let's go see what it would look like if I wanted to buy coffee mugs from here. So coffee cups. Actually, I want the paper ones. It's going to have a look at the mugs. Yeah. Okay, so you'll all be familiar with this. This is standard Amazon stuff. So I'm going to select. Those are the mugs we want. £26.99. Sounds like a good price for 6 mugs. So I can add it to the basket in the same way that you know about Amazon, and we can see here that I've now got one item in the basket. What's changed in this site is instead of saying checkout, it says submit these items for approval. But it knows it's got the link to eRequest. So now when I click on submit these items for approval, Amazon talks back to eRequest, back to your procurement system, and here we have their item number, the description, the vendor is Amazon, quantity 1, £26.99, and we can see it's put it to department 500 for us, 6,590. Let's just drill into there a bit more, have a look at more detail about it. Quantity 1, £26.99. I've also got my budgets down here. So I've got 99.94% of my office budget remaining. Obviously, I haven't spent very much on here yet. I'll save that and submit it for approval. So I'm going to submit it. I'm logged in as the eRequest user up here. So I've submitted it to column submit for approval. You can see here now as the eRequest user, this is the request waiting for my approval. So I've got an email coming in telling me that this request waiting for my approval. Have a look here. Here is the email that's come through. So it's a request for Amazon Office purchases, group consulting request user looking for a set of 6 porcelain mugs at £26.99. I've got that email coming through. If I'm remote as well, and I can't get access to the portal, I can just press the approve button on the email to go and approve this. Or if I have got access to the portal, I can log in as myself. Log out. Log in as myself here. And I can see I've got this request waiting for me to approve, so I can approve it. So when I approve this request, what the system's going to do is create the purchase order inside Dynamics, but what it's also going to do is it's going to send a message back to Amazon saying that request, that PO number has been approved. So I don't actually need to send this purchase order to Amazon, or we've already sent that message back to Amazon. Let's go back to my email. On that. We get an email saying the Punchout order sent to Amazon, PO number 17, request number 33. And an email will go back to the original user saying that it's been approved. So Amazon delivered that those copy mugs to the eRequest user, and the invoice gets downloaded from Amazon. So just to tie up quickly, what I'll do is I'll go back into eRequest. I'll enter the invoice. Okay. This time, I'm going to do a shipment invoice because I'm not going to put through receipts. Invoice 2005.2 will say this is batch CS205. Amazon, invoices come from Amazon. That's our porcelain mugs. That's the one that's matched to. So again, then attach. I can go through and attach my invoice that I've downloaded from Amazon. It doesn't require approval. It's been pre-approved. So I can now go and post this invoice through. What? Okay. When the time comes, I can also go and pay this invoice. I want to just quickly do that because, so I can show you what we can see inside the request. I create a CS pay batch, and I select Amazon. Here's our 2699 ready for payment. Open the payment window 20062. Do the payment and post the payment. So now I'm going quite quickly through this, although I imagine most of you spend a fair amount of time in front of these windows. I now, just to finish off, go back to eRequest. log back in as the eRequest user. Here's my request number 33 for my porcelain mugs. I drill down into it. To the invoice 200502. I can see the receipt number. I can also see across here that it's fully paid on payment number 62. And using the little link here, I can go and see the invoice from Amazon as well. Okay. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how we can use eRequest, invoice approvals, and the punch-outs to help us as we move into a different way of working and possibly remote working.